My name is Swapnil Hendre, and I would like to welcome you to today's session. I'm Director of Solutions Engineering and Design, and I have been with VMware for about 9 years. And my team is responsible for leading solutions architecture from inception to go live. For today's webinar, I'm joined by my colleague Aju. Aju, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I am Aju Sukumaran. I'm leading CET client engineering team of VMware IT. So I lead a client engineering team division which takes care of all the Horizon deployment and other end user computing product deployment internally to VMware. I hope you're all doing well and keeping yourself safe. We'll be talking about how do we manage remote worker solutions and M&A with the Horizon running on AWS.
Thank you, Aju. So let's start with the high-level agenda. First, we'll start with VMware IT's virtual desktop use cases, followed by why we chose VMware Cloud on AWS. Then we'll talk about deployment planning, where we'll review the high-level architecture, network connectivity requirements, the core services deployment, and how we are securing the workloads running in VMware Cloud on AWS. And next, we'll talk about the Horizon overview. Aju will go over that, where we'll talk about the overall Horizon deployment, followed by day two operations. And based on our experience, we have put together the recommendations and do's and don'ts. Finally, we'll conclude the webinar with the question and answers, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the webinar. So Aju, would you like to talk about the different use cases for the virtual desktop environment in VMware?
Absolutely. Thank you, Swapnil. Yeah, every company has got its own use cases when you are coming to deploying Horizon. So we also, as an internal customer, we have specific use cases for deploying the Horizon. Some of them are like desktop replacement, contract and temporary employees, and seasonal business and branch office. So these are all the regular use cases normally managed with the Horizon deployment. But specifically, if you look at with the current situation, there is a lot of remote workers and work from home scenarios all of a sudden popped up. So as an IT team, as an IT administrator, it is so demanding for us to provide immediate requirement of our various business unit to work from remotely. And also there will be a lot of new hires onboarding during this pandemic situation, right? And all of these scenarios, you need either a laptop to be shipped to the employees, or you need to provide alternative solutions. So the immediate answer for dealing with all of these use cases is like provide a Horizon virtual desktop, which is accessible from anywhere, from any devices, and it is also available in internet. And another use case and a scenario will be like mergers and acquisition, right? We had a high demand for providing a immediate virtual environment for a day one onboarding. So we also deal with that kind of an urgent and immediate burst requirement with the Horizon. Now, when it comes to providing all these use cases and providing virtual desktop, and now what if you don't have a capacity available in on-prem? Now, at present, if you really want to go and order a physical server and ship it to your data center, it is fairly impossible. So what is the next solutions available for us as an IT team in front of us? So that's where the cloud capacity really coming in as a helping hand to us. If you really look at the various use cases of cloud, we can really talk about a lot of scenarios where we can use cloud as a solution. One of them is like a data center expansion, and then app locality, like a user want to access certain application and virtual desktop local to that specific region. You could go to the cloud deployment and then have that use as a solution. Also, disaster recovery is maybe another use case for us. Now, in this specific webinar, we're talking about how we utilize the multi-cloud deployment, especially on AWS, to help our internal colleagues to expand their virtual desktop environment and make this virtual desktop available whenever they have an additional requirement of this virtual desktop as a work environment, like a new hire, mergers and acquisition, etc. So we talked to Swapnil as a solution engineering team that, hey, Swapnil, we need your help on providing us a cloud capacity, and it also meets our requirement of app locality and and a virtual desktop local to the each region, and it is accessible and available in a pretty quickly, and latency should not be that high. And also we wanted to make sure our existing Horizon virtual desktop deployment should be expanded to the cloud, so that I don't need to rework on my app stack application, virtual desktop deployment and image recreation, etc. So how do we make all these happen? So with that, if you really look at in this current slide, you can see that our current deployment is spread globally. So we have existing deployment of Horizon in on-premises in Americas region and in Europe, and also as in India. That's something which we wanted to expand it into other multi-cloud scenarios where you should meet all the requirement of expanding it seamlessly and without with the minimum amount of time. So Swapnil will talk about how do we arrive into these design and consideration, how do we deploy the AWS and the backend infrastructure, and after that I'll talk about the Horizon. Swapnil, over to you.
Thank you, Aju. So when Aju came to me with this requirement, we had two options, right? Either to deploy the Horizon infrastructure on-prem or look at the cloud. When we looked at the on-prem, we faced several challenges, as Aju mentioned, because it would take like months to procure the hardware. And after that, we deploy the hardware and hand it over to Aju. But again, we had several challenges such as the scaling the infrastructure, as well as making the infrastructure available in very short duration. So we decided to look at VMware Cloud on AWS. So let's take a look at it, why we chose VMware Cloud on AWS. But before we do, let's do a quick overview of what VMware Cloud on AWS is. VMware Cloud on AWS is a unified SDDC platform, which is backed by AWS. So a lot of our customers deploy the workloads on-prem, and they want to migrate the workloads to the cloud, but they want to use the same technologies they have been using on-prem, such as vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. So VMware Cloud or AWS provides just that, but it is backed by AWS. So you have the best of the both worlds, where you can deploy the workload in the cloud while utilizing the same technologies you have been using on-prem. So once we deploy the SDDC, the next thing you are going to need is to provide connectivity back to on-prem, because most of the workloads we deploy on the public cloud required some kind of hybrid connectivity back to on-prem. So in this case, when we deployed Horizon on VMware Cloud and AWS, we required connectivity back to on-prem so that our colleagues not only can access the resources over internet, but can access the resource on-prem. So there are two ways to provide that connectivity. And one is by doing site-to-site VPN, and the second one is using Direct Connect. We'll talk about these both connectivity methods in detail in next few slides. We also needed integration with the native AWS services, because we wanted to integrate VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC with AWS native so that we can perform the native services such as backups. We wanted to ensure that when the backup is taken outside of SDDC so that we can recover quickly. And we'll talk about that one too in detail as well. So before we get into more details about design and architecture, let's start about the main drivers for the public cloud. The first one is ease of provisioning. We can very quickly deploy the workload on the fly. All you have to do is go to cloud.vmware.com and create the SDDC. The 4-node SDDC generally takes about 4 hours to set up. This compares with like days or months of work on-prem, where you procure the hardware, you ship the hardware, you deploy the hardware, and then use it. Here, we can deploy the workload very quickly. Next one is the elasticity. So we have requirements, the seasonal workload requirements, such as, for example, Aju had a requirement to provide the virtual desktop environment for 1 year at very high capacity. And then later, his requirement was to shrink down the workload when he was done with that requirement. So with VMware Cloud on AWS, we can easily do that, where we can add the host on demand. And once his requirement is fulfilled, you can go ahead and then remove those workloads. The next one is resiliency. VMware Cloud on AWS is provided as a service. And since it's provided as a service, you're not really responsible for the backend infrastructure or the software which is running on your SDDC, such as vSphere, NSX, vSAN. Significant amount of time of administrator is spent in keeping the environment current or doing the patching, upgrades, and so on. Since it's provided as a service, you don't really need to do that here. And from the resiliency point of view, if you lose a hardware, we actually had a scenario where we lost ESXi host due to the hardware failure, but we didn't even have to open a ticket or anything. The host was added immediately to backfill that capacity. And once the defective host was replaced, we didn't have any problems. So there was no service disruption even due to the physical failure. The next one is flexibility. We can always flip the workload between the on-prem and the public cloud. We don't really have to stay in one place, so there is no lock-in involved. And finally is cost savings, which we realized because we don't really need to do any capex investment. Because if we did a capex investment, then we have to keep paying for that until the hardware depreciates. Here, use is strictly pay per use. As I mentioned, Azure had a requirement to provide the workload only for a year. After years of use, we can easily decommission that workload, and as soon as you stop using it, you stop paying it. It's pay per use. Now let's talk about the deployment planning. So before deploying any critical application or infrastructure, the planning is really essential. For VMware Cloud on AWS, we decided to do the planning in 3 phases. The first one is finalizing the network topology. This involves making some decisions before you create SCDC or software-defined data center. So this is very critical decision because when you create a SCDC, you need to choose a subnet for management network. And their choices are a /23 subnet or /20 subnet. If you want to have the hosts which are more than 27, you should choose /20 subnet. If you want to have the hosts less than 27, you can choose /23. I just want to emphasize here is this is a one-time decision. What I mean by that is, let's say you chose 23 and now you are at 27 host capacity and you want to add additional hosts, you cannot do that. The only option remains is to recreate the STDC or deploy another STDC. Hence, our recommendation is to plan that ahead of time, how your future deployment looks like. The next one is the establishing the connectivity to on-prem. You can connect using site-to-site VPN or direct connect. And we have a detailed slide and we'll talk about where we started and what option we chose there. The next one is the core services. We call them as a tier 0 services or infrastructure services such as NTP, DNS, backup, SMTP, and so on. These are the core services which are generally required for the application to function in the hybrid cloud scenario. So our recommendation is to do a deployment of localized core services and provide the resiliency to the core services. And we'll talk about this one as well in next slides. And finally, talking about the backup strategy. As we discussed earlier, we wanted to ensure that we are able to recover in the event of a disaster. And that's why we came up with a backup strategy, which allowed us to do a backup of the infrastructure of the SCDC, because we didn't want to deploy the backup inside the same SCDC, because if that SCDC goes down for whatever reason, we may not be able to recover. And we'll review the high level topology of that in detail. So as promised, let's start with the network connectivity to VMware Cloud on AWS. So there are 2 ways to connect. The site-to-site VPN is one way to connect, which is very easy to set up, very quick to set up, and you can be up and running in less than an hour if you want to just build a site-to-site VPN between your on-prem and your SCDC. Now, while these are the benefits, there are some drawbacks also. The first drawback is the latency. The site-to-site VPN generally traverses over internet, so the latency is high. We also have a challenge where we cannot guarantee a bandwidth since it's going over the internet. And as Aju mentioned before, when he came up with the requirement for deploying the workload in VMware Cloud on AWS, his request was that, hey, my latency should be within these parameters. Now, when we looked at site-to-site VPN, unfortunately, site-to-site VPN could not meet that requirement. Hence, we looked at the second scenario, which is Direct Connect. Direct Connect allows us to provide a dedicated bandwidth between the on-prem and the cloud, and we can guarantee the bandwidth as well as the latency is very low. Because think about this as a private connection from your data center to the cloud. So in this design, what we have done is we set up a co-location hub, and in that co-location hub, we connected from on-prem to this co-location hub, and from co-location hub, we can now connect to any SCDCs or any public clouds. So this helped us meet the requirement of the SLAs as well as the latencies as you had, and hence we decided to go with the direct connect to provide the connectivity. Now let's talk about the core services in more details. So the core services are generally very critical and the application's performance depends on the response time for these core services. So in this scenario, we had a requirement for providing connectivity to Active Directory, DNS, NTP, and so on. All these core services, these are generally hosted on-prem. What I mean by that is if we deploy a SCDC in the public cloud and we want to rely on these core services, we would have to traverse over either site-to-site VPN or direct connect to go to on-prem. Now, from functionality point of view, it will work, but we decided against using the on-prem core services for three reasons. First is the latency. The latency, we wanted to keep it to minimum. So the latency is very little if you deploy core services inside the SDDC. The next one is redundancy. So we didn't want to depend on on-prem core services. So for whatever reason, let's say the core service on on-prem is down, that means the connectivity to the cloud goes down as well. So we wanted some kind of independence from on-prem core services. And finally is the cost. For those who have worked on public cloud, know that anytime you egress the public cloud, there is a cost associated with it. So for example, let's say the Active Directory is on-prem and you have the Horizon deployed on VMware Cloud on AWS. And if it needs to access on-prem, so anytime you access that, there will be costs associated for every transaction. And it adds up very quickly. So these were the three reasons we decided to deploy core services in VMware Cloud on AWS. Now, these core services are very critical, and our security team wanted to ensure that we provide the enough security and visibility to ensure that these services are protected. So we did two things. First thing, we deployed a security stack inside the SCDC, which allowed us to monitor these core services. And second thing is we use the microsegmentation to create a zero trust network inside the SCDC. So by using zero trust network, it allows us to use the traffic or allow the traffic which is absolutely required and block everything else. By doing this, we were able to protect our core services inside the public cloud. Now, the next thing is the creation of the VMware Cloud on AWS. The creation of the SDDC is very simple. All you need to do is log into cloud.vmware.com, select your region in which you want to create a SDDC, select a name, choose the number of hosts. The minimum number of hosts is 3, and then choose a management network. As we discussed earlier, please decide your management network size depending on how big your SDDC growth requirements are. You also have a choice to connect to the AWS native VPC during the SDDC creation. So that means you need to have AWS native VPC access so that you can establish the connectivity. Now, since we talked about the a few core services, there is one core services specifically I want to emphasize a little bit more on, which is NSX Advanced Load Balancer. So VMware IT is on a journey to deploy all their workloads on NSX Advanced Load Balancers for various reasons. The first one is we want to ensure that we are able to do elastic deployment. So we should be able to scale horizontally and on the fly. The second thing is we want to have ability to identify the root cause of a problem very quickly. So let's talk about these, right? So at very high level, NSX Advanced Load Balancer provides us ability to measure the end-to-end performance of a specific application. Also, it provides us the ability to do the analytics. So for example, if there is any service disruption or if there is any problem, we can quickly identify the root cause by looking at these traffic flows and looking at this transaction. The legacy load balancer which we had unfortunately did not provide us this visibility, which would generally result into a service disruption or longer time to resolution of a specific problem. So hence we use NSX Advanced Load Balancer and deployed this in VMware Cloud on AWS. The next thing is like I just want to point out how we generally do the troubleshooting. The first one is you can look at the end-to-end timings of transactions. You can look at the real-time insights about where the request was coming from, what was the IP address, what was the operating system, and so on. And we can also look at, or you can search for a specific traffic patterns. And finally, from security point of view, we have a security pane which allows us to ensure that the application deployed in VMware Cloud on AWS using NSX Advanced Load Balancer is secure. It provides you the security score assessment. But generally, the security score of 5 is the maximum. You can look at that and it provides you why your score is low. Next one is it tells you about SSL usage. If the deprecated ciphers, if you are using your score goes down and so on. And finally, attacks. So if you are under denial of service attacks, you will see this in this pane. So this is kind of high level topology of our AVI load balancer or NSX Advanced Load Balancer, which we have been using, and we have deployed this inside VMware Cloud on AWS. Now that we talked about the core services, network connectivity, let's talk about the backups. So as we discussed earlier, our requirement was to ensure that we back up our data so that we can recover ourselves in the event of a disaster. If we had kept the backup inside the SCDC, the backup would not be useful if the entire SCDC goes down. Hence, at the time of the SCDC deployment, we establish the connectivity with VMware Cloud, with AWS native, and the connectivity is established using something called as ENI, or Elastic Network Interface. Elastic Network Interface provides very high bandwidth, high throughput connection, so you can take your backups quickly. In this scenario, we are using Avamar Networker and Data Domain solution to take the backups. So you can see that the networker proxies are deployed inside the SCDC, and the data domain is deployed inside the AWS native, and that's where we are taking the backups. So this is kind of a high level logical architecture for the backup. Now that our foundation is set, we reviewed the network architecture, infrastructure architecture, connectivity, backups, core services, just bringing it all together. Once we had this foundation built, we were able to deploy Horizon on VMware Cloud on AWS. And As you can see in this architecture, we have the NSX advanced load balancer or AVI load balancer is load balancing the UAGs, external and internal. So you might be wondering why we have the external and internal UAGs, and let me quickly go through that. The first thing is if you want to provide the connectivity to external users who are not on VMware network, we route them over internet and we use the dual factor authentication. And after that, the request routes through the public IP, then firewall, goes to external load balancer in DMZ, and then routes through the external UAG. Now we do have a user's on-premises network, and since we have a direct connect access established between VMware internal as well VMware internal and our STDC, these users can connect to the Horizon 7 using the internal network. And that's the reason we have this deployment where we have DMZ and internal networks inside our STDC. And this is another advantage of the NSX. With NSX built in to STDC, we can create the various segments and create the DMZ and internal and separate them using the NSX. So this is kind of how we were able to deploy Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS. And once this was deployed, Aju's team did extensive amount of testing and validated that this meets our requirement. So now that we have gone through the overall foundation which is required for us to run the STDC, I would like to request Aju to take us through the Horizon overview and tell us about do's and don'ts and day two operations.
Yeah, thank you, Swapnil. That actually brings the Horizon infrastructure live, and now that the operations of VD administrators begins, so he has to deploy the Horizon, and he has to deploy the pools, virtual desktop, virtual apps, and I need to merge all of this data with the on-prem. So we by looking at all of these requirements, we wanted to divide that into two aspects. One is from an IT administrator standpoint, and second is from the end user, or we call it internally as a colleague standpoint, right? So from the colleague standpoint, he wanted to, or he or she want to access a virtual desktop app. He just want to use one single URL, and or they have to go to the workspace on app catalog and launch virtual desktop and app. From an IT admin standpoint, having these many deployments of Horizon, like multiple ports and multiple connection brokers and everything managing and different infrastructure capacity, all of these things, they have to manage on a day-to-day basis, right? So how do we make it simple and it looks on a single console? These are all our challenges. So with the new Horizon design, some of you might have noticed that in last VMworld, we have announced that of availability of control plane and manageability from the control plane in the cloud. So we exactly did the same. We have federated our virtual desktops and virtual apps in internally in on-prem deployment, and then extended our federation to VMC. VMC was a new deployment. We have added that into our existing single URL, and then have a CPA enabled between on-prem deployment, which is available in Americas, Europe, and India. So that has been added into our existing, the new VMC deployment. Once we federated all our virtual desktop and app pool, we have done a global entitlement for the user. Any new user onboarding or existing user who is using, if there is any problem on a on-prem virtual desktop pool, they will automatically redirect it to the cloud deployment, which is available in VMC. And from the administrator standpoint, the users can, all of the administrators can view this various deployment and capacity using a cloud control plane. It's a single console where you could do some basic monitoring and resource management capabilities. So once from a user angle, user can access using a single URL, and a virtual desktop or a virtual app will be brokered from a nearest locations which are to the user. So those management capabilities is being enabled using our Cloud for architecture as well as GL, global load balancing. So once it is done, if you really look at it in the control plane in depth, it actually provides of various capabilities such as universal brokering, image management, application management, monitoring, and lifecycle management. If you really wanted to deploy AWS in a fully automated way and using an EC2 pod block architecture, you could leverage control plane for deploying the Horizon automatically in AWS. That is available right now. So all you have to do is plug in all your on-prem deployment and VMC directly to cloud control plane. And once you plug in using the workflow which is displayed on your console for deployment, you could complete the deployment. So it also provides additional feature like such as image management. Image management is another biggest challenge for a VDA administrators, where they have to manage multiple images for different ports across the globe. So image management feature provides a easiness for administering or managing the images and distributing it to multiple ports. And also an universal brokering, which is in a roadmap, that also going to provide us a app locality when you are using a Horizon on a cloud. So by looking at all of these deployments and then management capabilities, right? We as a VMware IT administrators, we find it much more easier to manage all of this environment in a single pod. Like it is displayed in the slide, you could have a geographical view of your deployment. You could also deep dive into some of the resource utilization, session statistics, and connection statistics using this cloud control console. And also it provides some of the basic reporting capabilities where you could run a report for various pod deployment to see the session statistics, users, and how many sessions are connected or disconnected, etc. So these provides much more flexibility on by using the cloud control plane. From a colleague angle, right, when they access this virtual desktop and app, right, they could use any end devices which is installed with either web browser or using a Horizon client installed on their end devices, be it a mobile, iPad, a Mac, laptop, or a Windows 10 laptop. They could use any kind of a devices. Even if the user bringing their own devices, they could easily connect to our deployment. This is published in internet with a single URL. They could access the URL and launch their virtual desktop and app. It also provides all your applications and the desktop in one location. We use Workspace ONE app catalog. We call it as a Workspace Intelligent Hub. So Intelligent Hub provides one single pane of glass for accessing your virtual desktop and application. And you could, end user can easily bookmark their last accessed application and virtual desktop for better experience for them. And it also provides an easiness in accessing instead of having a different URL for your active pod and disaster recovery pod, etc. That was in the past. We have to provide a different URL for them. With the Workspace Intelligent Hub, all your apps and catalogs, everything will be on a one single pane. And also, it provides a single sign-on capability. So now if you use a Horizon client and access the URL directly, the first thing which you need to do is, first is dual factor authentication you have to provide. And second is you have to do an Active Directory authentication, right? So now with the Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub, you will bypass these singles, all these additional requirement of providing username and passwords. It provides a single sign-on capability that also improve user experience. Now, from a virtual desktop standpoint, we provide multiple platform guest operating system, Windows 10 or Linux. And if you really look at Windows 10 in deep, right, so it has got a more Horizon application stack is integrated in order to provide a persistent experience on a stateless virtual desktop. Most of our virtual desktop are stateless, and we also have some use cases where we have to provide dedicated and full-blown virtual desktops for certain developers. And we use AppVolium for application stack as well as providing a capability of user install application and also providing a persistence disk experience for the colleagues. And we also use FSLogix for all the most of our floating deployments. This is for managing the O365 profile container, where we don't use a writable volume concept. we still need to provide some sort of a persistency for the users. For that, we use FSLogix. And also we use OneDrive for storing all the data. We have got two options we have derived in order to safeguard the user data. One is the folder redirection. We redirect my desktop and the documents into a remote share, and then we secure those data. And second is we insist the users to use OneDrive as their large storage capacity. Right, that feature also being provided to the end user for managing the user data. And from the personalization perspective, we use a dynamic environment manager. So this actually keeps all your personalization like user settings, etc., onto the DM. And this DM data is being replicated across your AWS as well as on-prem deployment. And user move from any port to any port, one port to another port, and they will always get the same experience. They will get the same application settings. They will get the same desktop and background settings as well. So you could also keep a uniformity on from the experience standpoint. And for that, we make all your virtual desktop configuration similar, whichever is federated, and also making sure that they have all application sets available. So this again replicated and making it available in every port. Those are federated desktops. And sometimes developer user scenarios where developers require some sort of a freedom where they need admin rights to install certain application and customize it. For that, we provide a app volume, writable volume concept. And in that, there's a specific template called UAA. If you enable that, user will have ability to install the application, and that will persist across multiple sessions. So like that, we provide, best end user experience, and also making it a simplified and a consistent in management of a virtual desktop. And all of the pools are on provision on demand. When as and when there is a requirement of virtual desktop, there will be either providing using a linked clone or instant clone. So 50% of our virtual desktop environment are migrated to instant clone. We are in the process of migrating from linked clone to instant clones, which provides much for faster provisioning capabilities. And it is more space efficient when you go with the tailed virtual desktop environment. So that's some of the improvement we done. We also understood that one size fits all concept will not work. We divided our users into different personas and different pool types based on their use cases and why do they want to use a virtual desktop environment. So based on those analysis and study, we created different types of desktop pools. Some desktop pool is combination of FSLogix, AppVolume and DEM. Some doesn't have a FSLogix and writable volume. So that will be directly going with the DEM, just like a stateless desktop, just like a temporary virtual desktop. When the colleague logs in, they need some virtual desktop available to perform the task. Some are like developers, they definitely require persistency, and also they require much more freedom on the guest OS. They come and ask for Ubuntu, sometimes CentOS and all. So we create those kind of different pools, make it available. And also we provide only two different configurations, like a platinum and performance, and based on different types of virtual desktops pool, we use any one of these desktop catalog model and then do it. We also have a certain pool enabled with vGPU that is for a very high graphics requirement. So only for those set of users, we provide VGP enabled pools. Remaining all go with the non-VGPU. So it's a mix and a combination of various technologies as well as different configurations. We provide virtual desktops to our colleagues. When it comes to the operations, it is nothing different from what we do on-prem. We still have to go through all of our regular patch management and Windows update and pushing the images in every month. So all of this is a regular VD administrator task that is still the same, even if in a federated environment. One advantage which we have observed, right, when you are having your connection servers running behind UAGs, be it external or internal, we can do a maintenance with a zero downtime. So which actually means that even if you really wanted to do a patch of your connection brokers, and you don't need to really take a downtime of your entire environment, and you can make those available for the end users. Now the UAG will do the brokering along with the AVI load balancer. And also when it comes to the virtual desktop, since it is a stateless, it is easy for you to do the regular patch management and keeping the security in mind. Always your security team want to have your servers to be patched and up to date, kept up to date, right? So with this federated and CP enabled architecture, you will be able to achieve that. That's something which is a living example. So we are able to do that. And also DM app profiling. Sometimes users app, if you are doing it as a profiling, you can make it as a uniform configurations. And you still need to do some sort of a lifecycle operations on a writable volume and app stack. Sometimes app stack may get obsolete and you come with a new app stacks. You need to you know, change those app stacks, remove it, retire it, and then go with the new latest versions available. And also the writable volumes, right? I mean, writable volume, let's say employee joins and work for some time and then leaves. So if you're not cleaning up, those writable volume will pile up. That also, as a part of an operations, we have to do it. So yeah, so some of the other, like a Horizon client needs to be on a latest version. It is always good to maintain what the Horizon connection server version, um, the same version which is there available for Horizon client to be used. And even if you're using a web client, sometimes not all the real-time audio video features are available, but still it holds good for virtual apps. And we have a different kinds of user using Horizon native client and also Horizon web client. So based on the use cases, you could suggest a user to use it. And then if you really look at the Intelligent Hub has got an option to select which client to launch. You want a Horizon client install your end device to launch as a default, or you want to use a browser. So that's an option where end user can customize, and that'll definitely help in terms of an experience from the user side. Also, when you moving on to after doing all of this deployment and operations, from our experience, we found that some of the do's and don'ts it is good to have, right? We tell our colleagues not to save anything on the C drive and keep everything on a OneDrive, or always keep it on a desktop or My Documents, because it has been redirected. And also we don't provide admin rights for all. We used to provide admin rights for everyone, which actually resulted into a lot of administrative overhead. Then we decided not to give admin rights, and we give only the power users, and only the elevated privileges we will provide as and when the user requests for installing certain application. That again we monitor, and we tell them not to install any unauthorized softwares. Restart the system guest once a week and save data to the desktop in documents and downloads. Allow 3 to 4 minutes of log off and logins. And so these are some of the basic do's we suggest the colleagues. And we also keep educating the user. How do we use? Whenever there is a new hire comes, they may not be familiar with the VDI. We provide them a general guidelines and a documentation, everything to read. So yeah, that's some of the basic do's and don'ts we will provide to the users. That's also providing and helping them in order to manage that virtual desktop. And also it provides best experience for the end users while they are using this VDA and desktop. They could easily move from a physical to a virtual, and because of keeping all their data intact on the cloud. And also we try to keep or match the physical device experience and a virtual, right? So moving on, would like to talk about some of the benefits we have got it from these deployments. Yeah, we'll start with the from the infrastructure perspective.
Okay, thank you, Haju. So let's talk about first one, which is reliability. So we are deploying the NSX microsegmentation inside the SCDC to make sure we allow the traffic which is absolutely necessary and block everything else. We are also deploying the core services such as security services to protect ourselves and do complete visibility to our infrastructure team. By doing that, we can ensure the safety and security of the data inside the SCDC. The next one is the resiliency. Now, from resiliency point of view, we always want to ensure that if there is no service disruption for service which is running inside the cloud. And as we discussed earlier, anytime we have any service disruption by, let's say, failure of the host, that is automatically remediated and our end users don't see any impact. So let's say you have 4 node STDC, and if one of your node goes down, The VMware Cloud on AWS built-in monitoring automatically detects the host failure and adds the host on the fly immediately to your STDC to ensure that not only you don't have service disruption, but also ensuring that you don't have any degradation due to loss of the host. So that's how we are ensuring the resiliency inside the VMware Cloud on AWS.
Yeah, it also provides a always available virtual desktop. If any on-prem virtual environment goes down, you will always have a desktop available in the cloud. So it also span across multiple locations. Like you saw in our one of the previous slide, we have a deployment in a multiple location, which is very nearest to the user. So it also provide a faster virtual desktop and app experience for the users. It also provides a home location-based virtual desktop. This is a feature of a CloudPod architecture. If you enable the federation, you could really define that which one is your home virtual environment, which one is your disaster recovery or a remote environment. So you could easily manage with this CloudPod federated architecture. And that's also one of the benefit we are seeing. And obviously, this will be superior colleague experience by delivering a federated virtual desktop using AWS Cloud and Horizon Cloud Pro architecture based deployment. It's always a user can access virtual desktop using a workspace one. And even if any environment goes down from a backend, user will never come to know that there is a failure happen in an on-prem or a cloud. So they will always get one virtual desktop when they click on virtual desktop icon or a virtual app icon in workspace one. So this gives us a more experience for the users. For internal colleagues, we have a pretty large deployment. We were able to manage thousands of urgent requirement of providing a virtual desktop within short period of time using this AWS and the Horizon 7 architecture, which was much easier for us to spin up more than 4,000 virtual desktop in short period of time, and then onboard, Pivotal, Carbon Black kind of a merger. And also we used those virtual desktop during our current, pandemic situation where users have to work from home. We don't need to ship any laptop. We couldn't ship any laptop for the new hires, and we couldn't even spend a loan a laptop for the end users, right? So we could ask them, hey, use any of your personal device and connect to our Horizon virtual desktop environment. So they could work without needing a company-owned laptop at this situation. So remote user experience and also M&A and various other use cases is be pretty much meet with the specific design. Yeah.
Thank you, Aju. So that kind of brings us to the end of our webinar. So hope you have enjoyed the webinar which we have gone through, and hope it was useful. Now we would like to take some questions. So if you don't mind posting your questions in the Q&A chat, and meanwhile we can start answering the questions. Okay, so there was one question. Will you be able to see this presentation? So we will be providing the recording of this presentation to everyone, whoever has signed up for this one. And there was some similar question about the slides. So yes, we will provide the recording of this webinar. At the end of this webinar, we will send this out to you guys. So we'll pause here for a few more seconds for any other questions you might have. And while we are waiting for the questions, right? So we just want to bring up these few resources for VMware and VMware on VMware program resources. So if you want to reach out, you can reach us to VMW on vmw@vmware.com. Myself, Aju, and a lot of the experts write a lot of the blogs as well as case studies. So you can view them by going to blogs.vmware.com. Yeah, so if you want to tweet us, you can reach us on Twitter as well.
Yeah, we have a texon.vmware.com. So that also provides a lot of video and documentation best practices. You could use how to fine tune your image, build an image which is faster, and also which provides a good experience for the users. Like that, very similar technology topics are published in a tech zone as well. I got one question where I have answered that already. So about FS Logics.
Please go ahead, Raju, if you want to.
Yeah, no, I have already answered that in the chat. The question was where the FS Logics is from Citrix, but no, it's actually from Microsoft. It's a profile management tool.
Okay. So we'll wait for if there are any other questions. Okay, so while we're waiting, there are a few upcoming webinars in May and June. So if you are interested, feel free to register to any of these webinars. There is one on SAP HANA, on vSphere, VMware IT journey to Tanzu Kubernetes Grid, and then how VMware IT does mergers and acquisition, and how VMware IT is exploring the passwordless security, this is the effort to protect ourselves from the phishing attacks and so on. So feel free to sign up on any of these webinars in May and June. Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes, and if there are no questions, then we can conclude.